Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Happy Friday, folks. We got a lot for you. First, let's talk about a major departure from the White House, how one particular staff member who has made an impact is leaving. We'll talk to you a little bit about that. Also, let's talk about the state of education. Is Chicago School District working against Black educators? We're going to be having a very special guest, Principal Brother Abdul Muhammad, to talk about his ongoing saga with the district. We'll have that discussion. Later on, we'll talk about how Black mothers have rallied in D.C. to call for school reform as they look at the issues of bullying, look at the issues of active shooting and curriculum. Very, very interesting gathering. And later on, we'll talk about how Houston's Rice University launches its first Afro-chemistry class, where they mix science with history. Very, very innovative. I'm going to share with you the latest on that. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh, man. Happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday. I hope you are looking forward to the weekend as much as I am. We've had a long week, had a lot to talk about, but this weekend is going to be something else. But I thank y'all so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Make sure y'all do your due diligence. Join us in the discussion right now as we're streaming on Brother Roland Martin's YouTube channel. You can join us in the chat where the illustrious culture crew is gathering, as well as on Roland Martin's Facebook page as well. And you can check us out there. So big shout out to the crew on the X platform, Facebook page, and on YouTube. Can we get a little horn or something for them? Because they always come through in a big way. There we go. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, make sure y'all do your due diligence. Check us out as we're streaming live on our home network of blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And we ask that you put something in the pocket, in the bucket for us as we kick off 2024, looking for you to be investors and stakeholders. So you can just go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. We truly appreciate your support. And thank you for all of those who have already donated. Also, folks, we're streaming on Amazon platforms. You can check us out on Amazon News or your Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime. Make sure you check us out there on the Prime Video app. You can just go to Prime Video, go to Amazon Prime Video, and find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV and News, or you can find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, then News. And we will definitely appreciate that. We're also streaming right now on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now under News for Black Star Network, as well as Plex TV. You can search for us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're streaming live right now, but you can search for us on Black Star Network or find us in the Live TV, the News, and Opinion. All right, folks, let's get started jumping in because we got a lot to talk about. I'm joined by my sister. She's one of our great new contributors here on the culture in the Black Star Network. She is the principal. She's an educator. Very, very excited to have her joining us as well. My sister, Kimberly Morrow. Kimberly, good afternoon. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good.
Good. Now, that's awesome. That's awesome. There we go. There we go. Big shout out to you, Kimberly, always doing some great work. Let me check in with the crew real quick because folks are checking in all around the country. And again, folks, we are streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube channel. Who we got in the chat, man? We got a lot of people in the chat. Mingley, Natasha Surge, Pauline Hurt, I see you. Pastor Damon Blissett, I see you. Thank you for checking in. Deidre Hall, Sister Debbie Muhammad, I see you. Brother Gary Brown, excuse me. Thank you so much for checking in. Cindy D, I see you. Thank you for checking in. Who else we got here? Real Brooklyn, my God. Thank you, sir. The ABX girl, good afternoon, ABX girl. Official Sanika, I see you. Tiana, I see you. The Stephanie Humphrey channel, I got you. Woo! Donna McAdoo Kelly, I see you. Who else we got in here? Najee Kenning, Nigel, thank you for checking in. Silver Blue, so glad it's Friday. So glad it's Friday as well. Man, people are checking in, and folks, make sure y'all do the same as well as we have these discussions. All right, Kimberly, let's talk about this major departure from the White House first and foremost. It's the departure of a person that we may not know by name, but whose impact is felt all throughout the administration. This person was the first chief diversity officer to leave the Biden administration. His name is Michael Leach. And this is a picture of Michael Leach, folks. And his most significant achievement is helping to staff up the most diverse administration in history. Michael Leach. Look at this young guy, man. He was the White House's first chief diversity and inclusion officer. He's leaving the administration later this month, based on one White House official who added that the move had been in the works for a while. He's also a special assistant to the president. Let me share with y'all what the type of work that Mr. Leach had done. Let's put that first quote up, please, Lee. Thank you. They are describing him as the most significant achievements as helping to staff up the most diverse administration in history. The Biden administration wants to make sure that his work continues and is searching for a replacement. According to the White House official, the Biden administration filed a report in June showing it employed the most diverse White House staff in U.S. history, as NBC News has reported. As of the publication of that report, nearly half of the administration's appointees identify as racially or ethnically diverse, and about 59% of White House staff members are women. Wow. Wow. Talk to me about this, Kimberly. What do you make of this? It's sad to see Mr. Leach is gone because it seems like he's doing some fantastic work of diversity, equity, inclusion, and making this administration a reflection of what's going on in the larger country. But this is interesting numbers for a lot of people who may not know. 59% of White House staff members are women. What do you make of that?
Well, here are my takeaways from this was, first of all, he's a young man and he has such a large, a long career ahead of him. So kudos to him, number one, for being in that position as long as he was in that position and getting things going the way he did. That was amazing and that is wonderful. And one of the other things that I'm so proud of, I feel like, the younger people, I feel like they're my children. I don't know, but I feel like it. I'm so proud of the fact that he's walking away on his own terms.
Right.
So when we hear they've already been let go or they are no longer there, that's when bells and whistles start going out for me. But the fact that he's in the position still, it's going to be another month before he leaves. Good for him, leaving on his own terms. So that's what I have to say about that, Farajii.
I hear that. The thing that got me is the fact that I don't think a lot of people really know, and we don't know about the inside, the ins and outs of the personnel of the White House. But to have 59% of the White House staff be women, to be ethnically diverse, you know what I'm saying, and making this the most diverse administration in the history of the United States of America, that's huge. That's huge. That is huge.
And that was one thing that Biden, when he was running for election, that is what he said. That was part of his promise, that he was going to have a staff that reflected what America looks like, compared to the staff that the previous president had. So he really kept his campaign promise. And I am very happy to see that he did it again. I'm just happy that this young man he has such a wonderful career ahead of him. So I'm so proud of him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And crew, I want y'all to post your comments on this very quickly as we talk a little bit about this. Kimberly, how important is that level of representation from your vantage point? I mean, you are a principal. You understand the importance of having people at the table, quote unquote, helping to make these decisions, right? But how do we make sure that it's not just window dressing, that it is not just representation by name or even by color of face, but there's representation of interests that are truly being felt at the table?
Farajii, that And that's the fight that we're still having, right? We're still trying to make sure that our representation matters. We know it's important in education. We know it's important in government work. We know it's important. For example, when we go to the doctor, how many doctors do we get to see that look like us? It's all of those things matter. It's so important because one, we need to be able to see ourselves reflected in these positions so that we know we can aspire to become that. We also need to know that when we go and we meet with these people that they understand us, because a lot of times if we don't see ourselves in the position, many times they don't understand our needs, our unique needs that we may have. So being in the position in the White House, being in the position at the hospital, being in the position on the police force, it is just so important. Representation absolutely matters. And it matters not only to us as adults, but it matters to our children, for them to see themselves in these positions. I can only imagine how many young people, when they actually see, this is a young man that worked for the White House.
Yeah.
Staff that made sure that diversity was included. So this speaks volumes, and it lets other young people know that this is something they can do. They can absolutely do.
And Tonio, heard you posted something, and welcome to the chat, Tonio. You said, I don't care about Joe Biden, but respect to the brother. So, there is still that part of it where, you can see individually we bring a lot of power to the conversation, bring a lot of power, but it doesn't work. And some people would even go as far as to say, well, he's leaving the administration, so that must mean that something is wrong. But I'm not always sure that that's the case. I mean, sometimes when you're in those positions, especially in politics, you are staying in politics for 2-3 years. You move on, another opportunity, show for it. Can you speak to that? Talk to us about, when you see like personnel changes like that, even in various spaces like education and politics.
Exactly. And what I said was before, if they put out a press release and said he was already gone, then there would be some red flags. But the fact that this press release, he's staying through until the end of the month, they are looking for someone to replace him, that means that he had been in talks with them. There is obviously probably a better opportunity. We think, oh, well, what could be better than the White House? There are other opportunities for this young man.
No doubt.
There are opportunities for him. I'm sure there are going to be opportunities that will be very profitable for him. And so when I see people leaving positions, I'm always leery if I see that they announced it after they're already gone.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes me think, okay, something's going on here. But the fact that they announced it, he's still there. He'll be there through the end of the month. Yeah, this young man has a lot. He has a huge future ahead of him, and he's young. So there's a lot of him out there.
Not every young black man can say and put on their resume that they were a special assistant to the president. Here's the other big question, and we may not be able to, I don't think this is such a big question posed by one of our great crew members, but official Sanika posted, that diversity come with the side of power, ? Decision making, ? And I think that's a big question that a lot of folks have been asking here, is that, we're with talk of all this diversity, equity, and inclusion, does that bring power? Does that bring decision making? Does that allow us to truly have some stake in any issue? What's your take on that?
I think it's going to depend on the industry. It's going to depend on the company that is doing the diversity hirings. Sadly, some companies are only doing it to make their quota. Some companies are only doing it because that's the thing to do right now. And there probably is not a lot of power coming with it. Hopefully that was not the case in the Joe Biden administration.
Yeah.
Hope that with those diversity hires did come a level of decision-making powers. I don't know. But we do know for a fact that with a number of companies, with a number of school districts, it does not come with power or decision. You really are the figurehead, or you are the puppet. That's what I like to call it. I like to say they want it, they want a puppet. They want somebody in that position that fits a certain criteria, but they still want to pull the string. So
absolutely,
it just depends. It depends.
Well, one of the things about Mr. Leach's experience and background is that he was formerly the head of the labor relations for the National Football League, the NFL. Before that, he was an assistant to the head coach for the Chicago Bears. So he went from the sports world, the labor world, into politics. So you're talking about a bright future. He can get a job anywhere, Kim. Exactly. He can go anywhere with that. I mean, you're working with the NFL, you're working with the Chicago Bears, now you're working with the White House. At such a young age, I don't know how old he was, but he is, excuse me. But, with that type of experience on your resume, you're going to have a lot of doors opening. And again, and I'm going back to something that you said earlier. The White House announced this. Yes. It wasn't like we found out on the back end. They put this word out on the front end. And so to me, that kind of indicates that there was some respect there, that they knew this was coming. Like they said, it's going to happen for a while, and that they're looking for somebody. And I'm sure he has some decision making in finding his successor for this role. But, this young brother's future is bright. He understands the importance of the time, bringing new faces into the White House. And, as the White House official said, they're planning to continue to do his work. What's your final thoughts on this?
My final thought, just one, good luck, Michael.
There it is.
And do your thing. Go out there and inspire, and do everything that you can do with this opportunity that you were given. I say
there
go.
It is. There it is. There it is. Cindy D, you say can't have a seat at the table if you're not invited to the dinner. He got to be there at the White House head table. There it is. There it is. All right, folks, speaking of having a seat at the table, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to be checking in with one principal who said he has had to fight to be seated at the table. More importantly, he has to fight for Black and brown students in the city of Chicago. We're going to be checking in with Brother Abdul Muhammad, who is a principal and an educator of 25 years, and his ordeal with the Chicago School District. And the details of this ordeal has been chronicled from every place in the Chicago Sun-Times to the Final Call newspaper. And now today we're going to have a conversation with our brother to ask the question, is the Chicago School District working against Black educators? We'll have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
hatred on the streets. A horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is a principal, who is an educator, and of course, she is a speaker, and she's one of our great new contributors here on The Culture here on the Black Star Network. And I know that before we bring our brother Abdul Muhammad, who is a principal in the Chicago school system, to talk a little bit about the ongoing ordeal that he has been experiencing, Sister Kimberly, around staying in his position. He was, he was ousted as a principal in one of Chicago's public schools. But I wanted to kind of get your take on this as well, because you are a principal, you have gone through some things as well. How serious is it for Black educators like yourself, Brother Abdul, and others? How serious of a fight and battle is it with school districts who may not see your value, who may not see your importance? How serious is that fight?
Oh, it's very serious, and it's so real too, because it doesn't matter how many degrees you have, where you got your degree from, how much experience you have. For some reason, if you step outside of what they want you to do, they will figure out a way to undermine you, to question your credibility. And so it is very important that we are in these positions. And a lot of times it is difficult to stay in these positions because of what they may do to gaslight you. But we're needed there. We're absolutely 100% needed there. But the fight can sometimes, it can take a toll, and the fight is serious.
Talk to us a little bit about your experience, Sister Kimberly, and why you even decided to move out of the school, move out of the school system, the traditional classroom setting, where your school is online and is certainly more accessible to a lot of Black parents and their children. What was the moment? What was the catalyst for that change for you?
So for me, I was unceremoniously let go. And so what they do is, I got a letter saying that your assignment for next year would be as a classroom teacher.
Now, what was your role? Now, what school district did you work in? Can you share that with us?
No, I can't.
Okay, okay. Because you signed an agreement, correct?
Yes, but they're 1 year agreements. So when you sign your contract is always for 1 year.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
But you had to take this particular school district all the way through the court system, and you had to negotiate. Your attorneys, your team had to negotiate some sort of settlement because of some of the violations and some of the actions from the district. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And was it just you in that settlement, or was it you and other educators?
It was just myself. It was just myself.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
So what happens when we sign as administrators, when we go into administrator, it actually says in the wording, in the contract, it says you are at will. You are an at-will employee. And so what that means is you serve principals, administrators, we serve at the pleasure of the board.
Right.
And so what can happen is they can remove you from your position. So yes. But
so this is an agreement that, is it like a national policy, or is this based upon each district? Like that type of agreement of being an at-will personnel member. Is that what is the nature like? What's the what type of agreement is that?
So when you become an administrator, you don't have a union as administrator. So we don't have a union that negotiate our administrator contracts. So
I think that's a surprise for a lot of people.
Yes. So, but because we were teachers, a lot of times what'll happen is the district will put you back in as a teacher.
Okay.
So technically they're not firing you. It just so happens with my particular situation, there were some mental health issues as well. So some illness issues. So yeah, I definitely took issue with that.
Right.
I'll just say this.
Yeah.
When I received that letter, I had actually just been released from the hospital.
So it caused some real mental health issues for you.
Yes. I was in the hospital while they were making this decision. I was,
Did you, and Sister Kimberly, did you find your story to be an outlier, or was this a common thread among other administrations, other administrators and other colleagues of yours, that things had gotten to be so toxic that it led to breakdowns, mental health breakdowns, that led to other mental health conditions? Was your story an outlier of that, or was that just kind of common, unfortunately?
So that's interesting. So when I was hospitalized and then when I was in treatment, there were other educators there in my group sessions. And I was floored because I was like, wow, I thought I was the only one who had experienced this as an educator. So you would really be surprised how many out there are experiencing this, and it's really taking a toll on their mental health. You really would be surprised.
Wow.
I was shocked.
Wow. I'm shocked hearing it, but I've heard those stories, Sister Kimberly, but I wasn't too sure. And I'm so happy that, I know it's difficult. I know there's some legal boundaries in sharing this part of your story, but I'm shocked to learn that things can get to that place, that an administrator has to be hospitalized. We got to take another pause, but I'm going to ask you a big question on the other side. So just get prepared. And then we're going to be checking in with our brother Abdul Muhammad from Chicago to get his ordeal as we had this conversation about school districts, particularly in the city of Chicago. Is the Chicago School District working against Black educators? Folks, stick around. Join us in the chat. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page, Roland Martin's Facebook page. I would love to hear what your thoughts are as we talk about this issue and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, chatting with my sister, one of our great new contributors here, Sister Kimberly Morrow, who is a principal. She's an educator. She's a speaker. And we're talking about the issue of public education as it relates to its treatment of Black personnel, Black administrators, Black educators, because we're finding that there are more and more horrific stories of Black educators feeling like they're not being heard, they're not being felt. And their presence is becoming more and more of a problem, and that they're being ousted by the same districts who say that they want to see our children learn. I want you to join us in the conversation, crew. and post your thoughts as we've been listening to Sister Kimberly and her story. She couldn't get into too much details just because of the legal boundaries of her story. But the fact remains that there were some things said, some things done that just drove our Sister Kimberly into a place where she had to be hospitalized. And it is so heartbreaking to hear that folks get into the system wanting to help, and then the very people that they're fighting against are their own educators, own administrators on another level. And Sister Kimberly, as we get Brother Abdul Muhammad from Chicago to jump on the line here, I want to get your take on that. Do you feel like school districts across this country, whether you're in smaller rural areas of the country or whether you're in some of these big cities like a Chicago or Los Angeles or New York, do you really think that they actually care about Black educators?
Generally speaking, I would say no. Now, of course, there will always be exceptions to the rule. And I have to admit, initially, I thought they loved me.
Right. Okay.
Oh my God, they love me here. They just love me. But then when I wasn't doing exactly what they wanted me to do, that's when I saw, oh no, I guess they don't. They just love me when I was doing what they told me to do. So yeah, I don't think it's, I think in general, the heart just isn't there. I don't see it.
And it opens up the conversation. You know, some people would like to chalk this up to being racism, but there are Black folks that are in these powerful roles that are a part of the district. And you know, we're going to be here. We got Brother Abdul that's going to be joining us in a moment. But when we hear about that, like how much of it is race oriented? How much of it is professional in terms of how your personal style of educating our children? What do you think? What would you attribute that to?
I think it could be both, because I've taught in a school district that was, I used to tell people it was Black from the superintendent all the way down to the custodians. And then there become other issues that you have. So it's not an issue of they don't like Black people. It's then there are other issues that begun to come about, which I got to see firsthand. A lot of them then were socioeconomic issues. Yes, it's a little bit of class issues. So not always race. Sometimes it's socioeconomic. Sometimes it's just it can be other things involved as well. So I'm fortunate. I've worked in a number of school districts throughout my career. And one thing I know, when you said, is this indicative of a large school district or a small school district? A school district is a school district, no matter what state it's in, what area of the state it's in. It could be a rural district. It could be a big city district. There are politics at play in school districts.
Absolutely. Speaking of the politics, we got our brother Abdul Muhammad, who has been an educator in the Chicago public school system for 25 years. Now, last year it was the beginning of an ordeal to remove our brother from one of Chicago's public schools in the Inglewood community. And we're happy to have Brother Abdul to be a part of this conversation as he talks about his ordeal. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Abdul. How are you, sir?
Walaikum salam, Brother Farajii. How are you? And
I'm good.
Your guest and your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Brother Abdul, let's talk about what happened on that fateful day in March. What was you were the principal of a school in the Inglewood community of Chicago. Break that down to me.
So, Brother Farajii, I've been in Chicago public schools and your listeners for 25 years. I was selected to be the principal at Lindblom High School, which is a selective enrollment school in the city. And on March 31st, I was removed from the school based on trumped up charges from 7 white staff members, 7 white teachers. I'm an award-winning educator. I won a Teacher of the Year. I was nominated twice for the Golden Apple. I was featured in Who's Who among American high school teachers for 4 or 5 consecutive years. So my work has been 100% in Black communities. And what happened when I was selected at Lindblom, which is what Ms. Morrow just brought out, you know, it was politics at play, but it was also race that was a factor, because it's a school that's 90% Black and brown, but the staff is 95% white. They've never had a Black principal. They haven't had a Black principal since the school reopened in 2005. I was the first Black principal since the school reopened, and only the second Black male principal in the 100-year history of the school. And I was the only Muslim principal. And when I came into that school and started holding white teachers accountable for what they were not doing, the white teachers, as well as the Chicago Public School District, began to, well, they'd been working against me before, but they got together and collaborated with those 7 white teachers at Lindblom. So to answer the question on your screen, is Chicago School District working against Black educators? The answer is yes. And it's not because they're working against me, but if you look at the history of Chicago Public Schools, they have a 186-year history of working against the education of Black children and systematically working against Black educators. So before the attack was on Black principals, the attack was on Black teachers. When I first came in Chicago Public Schools, the district was 50% Black teachers. And now the district is 20% Black teachers. It is because through the policies of Rahm Emanuel and Mayor Daley and others, they systematically purged Black educators from being in front of Black children. So the attack on the principals is just the most recent attack that they have launched against the Black community.
Sister Kimberly, when you hear that, I mean, he's talking about the second Black, only the second Black male teacher in the school, first Black Muslim principal. He has a 95% white staff in a neighborhood that's predominantly Black and brown.
Right.
And
Sister Kimberly, talk to me.
It doesn't surprise me, but what I want to say to you, sir, is thank you. Thank you for bringing the public's attention to this. Unfortunately, when I went through my situation, I just wanted to get my job back. So I was trying to keep everything quiet. I am so glad that you are spreading the word. You are letting your voice heard, because there are other Black administrators who need to hear this, and they will be empowered by this, and they will know that you don't have to just be quiet and just hope that everything goes away. So thank you so much. Thank you.
I definitely appreciate it. And I want to say this, because as I've been raising my voice, Black educators have reached out to me from all over the country. So this is not just a problem that's going on in Chicago. I got a call today from Tucson, Arizona, and Dr. Brown in Tucson, Arizona is being opposed because she is trying to make sure that Black boys are not suspended at a higher rate and that Black girls are not suspended at a higher rate. And she's being opposed by the superintendent and other people in the Tucson, Arizona community. So this is not just an attack on Abdul Muhammad. What happened with me is they attacked me. They came against me with 83 false charges, 83 lies from 7 white teachers. And they did a bogus investigation and removed me from the school based on those 83 lies. So once they came against me and I stood up, sister like you know, I've been in Chicago public schools for 25 years. This is not the first time that I have been attacked by Chicago public schools because of my religion. And nobody should be attacked and denied job opportunities and opportunities to grow in their career because of their race, because of their religion, because of their sexual orientation. But when I was attacked the first time by Chicago public schools for my religion, I didn't fight back. I just wanted it to be over with. I just wanted to continue to do my job on behalf of Black and brown children in the city of Chicago. But when they came this time and attacked me because of my religion and brought 83 false claims and false charges against me and wanted me to lay down and accept the lies that they said and did not fact check a single word of these white teachers, that is what I'm supposed to pass on to the Black children that I was standing in front of. So I didn't go out here to be a hero. I did what any normal human being that respects themselves, that loves Black people and loves Black children would do. I stood up and fought. And when I stood up and fought, other Black educators joined the fight. And now I'm getting calls and emails from Black educators from around the country because there is an attack on Black educators in places like Chicago, where, you know, these white people here, they claim to be liberal, they claim to be progressive. The way that they attack is if it's a Black educators that's like you said, that's doing something that they don't like, as if it's up to them to decide what's best for our community, then they come with false charges. They come with a false investigation to remove that Black educator. But in places like Tucson, Arizona, where you have a majority white district and it's conservative, where Dr. Brown is fighting for Black children, then they don't come with the false investigation. They just come and remove the educator that's working on behalf of Black children. So we have the same thing happening in the so-called liberal areas in America, and we have the same thing happening in the so-called conservative areas. But listen, the attack is on Black educators, but in reality, it's an attack on Black children. Because what is going to happen in Black children in these spaces if there are no Black educators to properly educate them and to advocate them and to advocate for Black families?
Look, we got to take a quick pause, Brother Abdul and Sister Kimberly. Well, on the other side, I want us to continue to this because, Brother Abdul, you weren't the only one that was singled out. Now, you mentioned that, of course, because of your religion, of course, race plays into that.
Right.
But there were others that were ousted as well. And there are a lot of layers to your case because as you started to speak up, then other stuff was like Pandora's box has just been opened.
Absolutely.
And you started to experience a lot of things right there at your school of Lindblom and other places. And of course, we got to ask the big question, and you know, you certainly could answer this on the other side, is what do you want to stay in the system? Do you want to go back to that school? And, you know, I don't want you to answer that now.
Yes, sir.
But we'll certainly, you know, get your answer on the other side. Crew, I want you to join us in the conversation as we checking in with Brother Abdul Muhammad, who is a principal, an educator of 25 years in the city of Chicago, who is deciding to use his voice, to use his platform to fight back against the injustices that he sees happening from the Chicago school district. As we're asking the question, is the Chicago school district working against Black educators? Brother Abdul said, absolutely, emphatically, yes. Sister Kimberly said, yes, because it has happened to me, and I want to hear from you. So post your comments on Roland Martin's YouTube channel in the chat. Post your comments on Roland Martin's Facebook page, and let's continue the conversation. Also on the other side, we're going to bring in my sister Corinna Denise to be a part of the conversation. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Peace and welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we're just getting the beginning parts of this conversation around education, the state of education. And more importantly, we're asking a very specific question about whether the Chicago School District is the Chicago School District working against Black educators? Now, this question comes out of the great ordeal that our brother Abdul Muhammad, who has been an educator in the Chicago public school system for 25 years, folks. 25 years, this brother has been nominated and has been awarded some of the most prestigious awards given to educators and teachers across the country. But he was ousted last year as a result of false charges. He was ousted as a result. And we could probably go as far as to say, and I want to bring Brother Abdul and my sister Kimberly Morrow, who's an educator. Can we even say that there was some level of conspiracy? And I don't want to just use that word lightly, Brother Abdul, but talk to us. Do you feel like it was a conspiracy to get you ousted from the school system?
Oh, absolutely, brother. And I'll say, a conspiracy doesn't necessarily, conspiracies happen all the time. If two of us say we're going to rob the liquor store, you're going to be charged with conspiracy. The root word of the word conspiracy means to breathe together or to act together. And so, one of our brothers by the name of Jabril Muhammad said an orchestra doesn't play together on accident. So if you have an orchestra that plays, as many of us have been to the orchestra, it's not until the conductor comes out that all the instruments in the orchestra begin to play together. So when you see this concerted effort, so in my case, you have every department in Chicago public schools. You have the Office of Principal Quality. You have the Office of Network Support. You had the CEO. You had the law department. You had every office in Chicago public schools work together with members of the Chicago Teachers Union to have me removed from the school. That is a conspiracy. That is people working together to achieve an aim that is negative, but it impacts Black children. And so in my particular case, brother, Black people have the right to self-determination. But what's happening in Chicago is that the Chicago public schools is denying Black people the right to self-determination. They're denying us the right to select the leaders we want. I didn't put myself in Lindblom. The local school council, which only has two jobs. One job is to approve the budget. The other job is to hire the principal. The local school council, made up of Black, brown, and white members, they elected me unanimously to be the principal of Lindblom. But because of my religion, Chicago public school officials tried to get the local school council to change their decision. And when the local school council refused to change their decision, that is when they worked for 8 months to undermine me. And to show you how corrupt some of these Chicago public school officials are, the local school council members that supported me, they opened up a fake investigation on them as well. So what are they telling us? They're telling us that you as Black people do not have the right to select your own leaders for your community. Chicago is the most segregated city in the United States. And we can't go to Pilsen, which is a large Latino area in Chicago. And I know the principal there personally, but we can't go to Pilsen in the Latino neighborhood and 2 or 3 Black teachers say, well, I don't like this Latino principal. He's the first Latino principal in the history of the school. I don't like him. It's a Latino neighborhood. It's a Latino LSC, but the 2 or 3 Black teachers who don't like him band together and have that principal removed. That's never going to happen. But this is what's happening in the city of Chicago. Our right to self-determination is being denied. And when the local school council members stood up behind me, who they elected, then the Chicago public school officials began to investigate them as well. So it's absolutely a conspiracy, but I don't want us to lose the focus. The focus is on our children. It's not just about a job, because as Ms. Morrow said, we can all just go get a job somewhere else, but it is about our children. And Black educators are being systematically removed from being in front of Black children. So that is the real focus of the attack. It is on Black children, and we have to fight back. And this is why I stood up. When I stood up, Brother Farajii, other principals stood up and joined the fight, because the same thing happened to them. We have a brother right here in Chicago who is the principal of Dunbar High School. His name is Gerald Morrow. And he was removed in December of 2022. It's January of 2024, and he does not know what he's been charged with. He's been out of his school for a year, and they haven't even told him what he's done. That is the level of insanity that we're dealing with in the city of Chicago. So you ask me, is it a conspiracy? Yes. You ask me, are the Chicago public school officials working against Black children? If you're removing Black educators, you're working against Black children.
But there were some other things, and I want to bring in another voice in a few moments, my sister Corinna Denise, another educator. But there were some other elements of your case, that as a result of the ousting, you were one of 7 or 8 other.
Oh, I can give you.
Yeah.
I can give you the stats. So when I started to fight back, and the other principals joined in, Sarah Karp, who is a famous writer for the Chicago Sun-Times and WBEZ. She's the one who exposed the story about Barbara Byrd Bennett that got her removed. She's also the one who exposed the story about special education that got CPS sued by the state. So Sarah Karp wrote an article, and when she used the Freedom of Information Act to find out how many principals Chicago public schools removed in 1 year, Sarah Karp, now we had already been saying that they're targeting Black principals. Sarah Karp, through the Freedom of Information Act, found out that there were 10 principals removed in 1 year. 2 white, 8 Black. So 80% of the principals removed were Black. Then we found out through Sarah Karp that 7 of the 10 were Black men. So Black male principals only make up 8% of the principals in Chicago public schools, but we're 70% of the removals. There's something wrong with that picture. So what we're sharing with you is Chicago public schools is targeting, like what they did with me. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm new. I was new to Lindblom. I just walked in the door. My first day was July 7th of 2022. And before the end of the year, before December, they had already started an investigation, and I just got to the school. So this is the level of insanity. They're targeting Black principals. They're male and female, but there's a specific target on Black males in a district that says they want to help young Black men, but they're targeting their leaders. So that's the first thing that Sarah Karp found out in her article. The second thing that Sarah Karp found out in her article through going through the report is that the charges that they used against myself, as well as some of the other principal, were flimsy charges and not charges that would have a principal removed. For example, they said I came to late work one day, which was not true. But even if I did come to late work, is that a reason to remove a principal from a job? Like, this is the level of insanity that we're dealing with in Chicago. And another thing that Sarah Karp's article proved that we had been saying all along is that the investigation was flawed. In the investigation that CPS did, they only interviewed the teachers, the 7 white teachers. They did. There's 40 other people that are mentioned in the report, and they did not interview a single one of them. They only interviewed the teachers, the 7 white teachers that didn't want me, a black man, to be the principal of a black school in a black neighborhood after being elected by black people. So when Sarah Karp gave my investigative report to Joe Ferguson, the former OIG, Inspector General for Chicago Public Schools, he looked at it, and Joe Ferguson himself said that it was a flawed investigation. So that's everything that we had been saying, Sarah Karp agreed with. The only thing that Sarah Karp didn't deal with in her article that was in the Sun-Times on August 1st of 2023 is that not only were the charges petty, but the charges were 100% false, and we have the evidence to prove it. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a district that's targeting black leaders, specifically black male leaders.
I want to bring my 2 sisters into this. Corinna and Denise, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to have you, Corinna. Got my sister Kimberly Morrow. Kimberly, I want to get your take on this as you hear more and more details of this, because you were excited that we were able to get Brother Abdul to be a part of this conversation, to be on the show today. Now hearing more of the details around this, what's going through your mind? And then Corinna, I would love to get your take.
Here's what's going through my mind. This is standard operating procedure. Pretty much what he just said, I experienced. So the reason why I was quote unquote being investigated was because I called in sick the day before a 3-day weekend. And then when I did finally, came back after having been out ill all that time, some of the things were, well, you're not on your campus. You were off campus. Of course I was off campus. I was at meetings. I went to the other high schools to meet with a parent that high school principal called me over to meet with, and I had all of my documentation. So what has happened to the principals in Chicago happens in California, happens in Georgia, this is a nationwide issue. This is not just in the Chicago public school system. So as he was saying that, I was like, this is what they do. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing your job. He said he's been doing his for 25 years. I had as well. I had been a teacher of the year. I had been who's who among high school teachers. It doesn't matter. I actually was questioned as to if I had taken my classes on campus at Harvard. I was like, wait, what? First of all, I went to Harvard in 1995. Were there online classes in 1995? No, we barely just got the internet in 1995. So they try to diminish our accolades. They try to diminish what we bring to the table. And this is not a citywide thing. This is nationwide.
Corinna, what's your take on this? And I know, and again, listening to Brother Abdul's story, listening to Sister Kimberly's Morrow story, what's your take of this? Because you are a college admissions advisor. You worked in the school system for years. You see all the stuff that is going on. What do you make of Brother Abdul's story?
Well, peace and happy Friday to all. First of all, I just want to say that, and shout out to all the educators, because we truly are the unsung heroes. And Mr. Muhammad, I'm truly sorry to hear what you're going through and what all the other principals in Chicago are going through. And man, I got all kind of feelings stirred up in me, Farajii.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I too have had somewhat of a similar experience, not to that extent, unfortunately, that Kimberly and Mr. Muhammad have had based on today's conversation thus far. But I do know what it's like to be otherized, especially in your schools. And something that really came to the forefront is it's almost as if the biggest crime that you commit as an educator when they're looking to oust you out is the simple fact that you've rightfully earned the respect of the children and they really like you. And, you know, once they really like you, it's kind of like, oh, that's it. You got to go. And it's kind of like only so much disruption per se before exile. And by disruption, I mean, you know, actually cleaning up things and streamlining processes and make sure things are functioning and taking care of the school, right? Investing in the children and the culture and the parents and the families. And then oftentimes we end up here. But yeah, I have definitely seen it. Again, I have been in spaces where, you know, I walk into the school building and I'm reminded that I'm Black every single day. I've been in spaces where, you know, with the kids, they love you, the parents, oh, most grateful, but specifically certain administrators and those who kind of have the power to make certain decisions will just be very calculated and forging a plan to find a way to remove you. And they're just waiting with bated breath sometimes for you to make maybe a single mistake or a slip up, and then they'll just, you know, blow it up bigger than what it really is. So it kind of just really stirred up those feelings. I wish I could speak more to my experience, but again, you know, legally there's just certain things I cannot. But yeah, it you think you kind of move past something, but man, I'm just like, I'm trying to restrain so much right now.
No, it's all right. And I understand. I understand, Corinna. I get it. I get it.
It's
I mean,
really
it's yeah.
Man. Yeah.
It's very disheartening, and I know we got to take a quick pause. But Brother Abdul, CC Knight, one of our great crew members, watchers here on the show, she posed this question, and I think this is an important question. What is the mayor saying? Is there an independent entity within the school system or outside the school system that you can find some justice with your grievance?
Well, that's a great question. So first and foremost, the root of what all of the principals are going through in Chicago is there's no due process for principals in Chicago public schools. There's no due process. There's no job protections. So we don't have the same job protections as teachers. Anybody can come with false charges. They are the judge, the jury, the executioner. There's no secondary person that goes through the report and says, "Oh, well, this is not right." So you don't have that. When they removed me from the school and I emailed them, they told me that, well, we'll tell you what you did in 2 to 3 weeks. How did you remove me? And you haven't even told me what I did. And it wasn't until we threatened to sue them for defamation that they actually gave me the report and let me read it. And that's when I read through it and saw all of these lies, I started to gather the evidence to prove that everything they said was wrong. And then I had to go back to them with the evidence. I'm talking about clear-cut evidence that these were lies, and they didn't look at any of that evidence, and you know, I was removed. So it's like the police investigating themselves. We already know how that's going to go. So one thing that we're demanding is that there's some other body that looks at principal removals and looks at the evidence for what it is, and not on the Chicago public schools and their leadership. To answer, there's no,
but Brother Abdul, there's no union. We
have a union, not in Chicago. So what we have is a principals association. We just got bargaining rights in December, so we're not a union yet. We're still working on the contract. So we don't have a strong principals union. We only have an association. So now to answer, so the only person that we can appeal to politically in Chicago to really deal with this situation is Mayor Brandon Johnson. And I'll say this, that in December of 2022, when Brandon Johnson was running for mayor, I had a conversation, I had a one-on-one Zoom meeting with, he was candidate Brandon Johnson at the time. And he asked me, he said, "Do you have any political support?" I said, "The alderwoman supports me, as well as the state rep, Stephanie Coleman and Sonia Harper." He said, "That's fine." And you know, the foolishness that Ms. Morrow just talked about continued to go on, false charges. And what the other sister just said, any little thing that they could use to try to blow up and use against you. I lived this for an entire year. And when they removed me on false charges on March 31st, we had a press conference at Father Flager's church on May 18th. On May 18th, we had the press conference, and then May 19th, we had another conversation with Mayor Brandon. He's the mayor now, with Mayor Johnson, and we shared with him again what was happening to myself as well as other Black educators. Because at the end of the day, he's the only one, he's the decision maker. He's the only one that can change what is going on in Chicago public schools. And what Mayor Johnson shared with us, he said, look, I'll have my people get back with you. You know, we're still waiting to have that conversation. Then when, so those are the two conversations that we've had with the mayor. The mayor knows what's going on in Chicago public schools with principals, with educators. He's a former educator himself. At this time, he has not done anything about what's going on. We hope that he will do something in the very near future. You know, so I'll leave it at that. But the mayor is the decision maker. But I'll say this, because sometimes our politicians need a little more pressure from the public. So when this fight started, we created a website called Justice for Abdul Muhammad. And on the Justice for Abdul Muhammad website, I would love for everyone who's listening to go on Justice for Abdul Muhammad, and you can register for the website. We'll keep you updated. On the website, there's you can sign the petition. There's 3 things that we want you to do. One thing we want you to do is register. That's one. The second thing we want you to do is sign the petition. It's 4 things. The third thing is right there on the website, right there. You can email Mayor Brandon Johnson right there. All you have to do is click on his name and the email will go straight to him. You don't even have to write anything. We've already composed the email for you, but click on the mayor's name and it's going to go straight to his email, because at the end of the day, the mayor is the decision maker. You know, we say as Black people, and we're always happy to have a Black person that represents for us. So we have a Black mayor. We're excited about that. But we want our Black politicians to actually work on behalf of Black people. Sometimes that requires pressure from the public. So we want you to send that to Mayor Brandon Johnson. The last thing that you can do, if you so choose, is there is a GoFundMe on that same website. You can click on that, and if you so choose, you can donate to the GoFundMe as well. So we have had that mayor we have had conversations with the mayor. We haven't had any results, and we're hoping that we can have a future conversation so we can resolve this issue. But at the end of the day, Mayor Brandon Johnson is the decision maker when it comes to Chicago public schools.
We got to take another quick pause. When we come back, Brother Abdul, I want to kind of get some final thoughts from you in terms of what type of parental and community support have you gotten around this issue, and has it pushed the needle a little bit further along to solidify the unity behind you and those others who were ousted unjustly? We'll continue to talk about that, folks.
Absolutely.
Stay with us. Continue to post your comments as we're streaming right now on Roland Martin's YouTube channel. Check us out in the chat there. Excuse me. And you can also check us out on Roland Martin's Facebook page. And let's continue the conversation on the other side as we're talking about the state of education. We're asking the question, is Chicago School District working against Black educators? The answer right now is yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is not the only district that is doing so. So we'll continue the conversation on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people power movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We have been having a very, very in-depth conversation about what's going on in Chicago public schools as we've been hearing the story and the trials and tribulations of the one principal who's an educator for 25 years in the Chicago public school system, Brother Abdul Muhammad. And he has laid it out, the ongoing experience, the ordeal that he's been a part of as he is fighting against the school system there in Chicago for Black children, and more importantly, fighting to make sure that our representation, our presence in the classroom stays intact. And along with Brother Abdul, of course, I'm joined by my sisters that I do every Friday, Sister Kimberly Morrow, got my sister Corinna Denise as well. Brother Abdul, I want to, as we wrap up this part of the conversation, I just will let you know, one, we're going to support you here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. So you do have a place and a platform to keep us up to date. And I know there are some things, and I'm going to ask you, to talk about what the next steps are in this process. Yes, but what has been the community's response and feedback? What is the parental feedback that you have received in light of all that you have already gone through?
Well, brother, I'll say this as a 25-year educator and phenomenal educator in the Black community. And I want to just share real quick because I need our people to understand that Chicago Public Schools is removing the best educators in the city of Chicago. Every school that I've been in, I've gone into that school and transformed the school, increased the attendance, increased the graduation rate, increased the grades at every single school that I've been in. Some of your listeners may be familiar with the city and the various schools in the city. But I started on the west side of Chicago. And from there, I transitioned to the south side. I was at Westinghouse. I was at Chicago Vocational High School on the south side of Chicago. I was at Simeon. While I was at Simeon, Jabari Parker is one of my former students, as well as Kendrick Nunn, who are in the NBA, as well as Blake Hickman, who was in Major League Baseball, because Simeon's a big sports school. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. And right. From there, I went to a school named Percy L. Julian, which is on 103rd in Chicago. And I'm bringing this up because your listeners hear about Chicago all the time. And there's the same narrative about the shooting, the killing, the violence, the gangbanging. And you would think that there's nobody in Chicago that's doing anything about it. And that's not true. I'm working with the very young people in the city of Chicago. From there, I transitioned to a school called Nancy B. Jefferson, named after a civil rights leader. But the unique thing about Nancy B. Jefferson is it's located inside of the juvenile detention center in Chicago. So even though I work with all of the different young people in all of these neighborhoods, when I got to Nancy B. Jefferson, I'm working with the very people that you see on the news. And I'll give you an example that most people are familiar with. There was a young 14-year-old girl from the west side of Chicago that went to John Hope High School and shot her friend, who I believe was 14 as well. Her uncle brought her a gun from the west side, and she shot her friend. And this was all over the news. But I know that young lady. She's one of my former students. So these were the children at Nancy B. Jefferson that were locked up for various crimes in Chicago. And when I got to Nancy B. Jefferson and I worked with the young people, and they told me it's 85% Black boys at this school. And I worked with these young brothers. And when I was there, this was the first time that the various gang bangers that were locked up could be in the same room together. The GDs, the BDs, the Vice Lords, the Four Corner Hustlers, the Latin Kings, the Black Souls, the EBK. This was the first time we could put them all in the same room and there not be a confrontation. This was the first time where young Black boys who were incarcerated cared about graduating from high school because I work with those young brothers and we changed the culture of the school that's inside of the juvenile detention center. So while we see all of these things happening, there are people here that are transforming the lives of children every day. And we're being attacked because of that transformative work that we're doing in Chicago. But because I have this track record, when this happened to me in Chicago, people who knew me, knew my track record. Of course, they stood up. Father Flager, I've known this man for 20 years or longer. I would bring my students to the peace tournament basketball games that Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose put on at Father Flager's church every year. So, you know, when this happened, the community stood up. Of course, the brothers and sisters who are in the Nation of Islam stood up. Educators who know my track record stood up. We have Attorney Crump that's supporting us as well as, you know, we have Black politicians. So you asked about some of the next steps. We met with the Legislative Black Caucus for the state of Illinois, and the Black Caucus for the state of Illinois has agreed to have hearings in the state legislature regarding Chicago Public Schools removal of Black principals. So the Black Caucus is supporting us 100%. We also have Black aldermen that are supporting us as well. So we do have political support. We do have some support from the religious community in Chicago, parents, students, and fellow educators. But again, we want to increase that support. So we've been doing a lot of community work. When I say we, I'm talking about myself, the other principals, and the Principals Association to build that support for the principals. And it's really support for Black children because we are the educators that are in front of the children every day.
So you do have a meeting scheduled next week to talk to some of the Chicago or the Illinois state legal representatives to get their, you know, as it relates to, you know, the equal opportunity, right. And possibly, is this on the table, a class action lawsuit? Is that being discussed right now?
Yeah, well, that I don't know. We have a meeting about that next week, but there are lawsuits in the works, so we're working on that right now. You know, the legal process takes time. So we've started that process. We started that process months ago. We have a meeting next week with a civil rights attorney. We also met with Sister Kimberly Clark, who's the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Civil Rights. She's very interested about what's going on in Chicago as far as discrimination against Black educators for religion, for race, and whatnot. So we did meet with her and her entire team via Zoom. So we're trying to bring as much attention to this as we possibly can. And this is why we want your listeners to go on the website, justiceforabdulmuhammad.com, so that we can keep everybody updated. I'll come back as much as I can. And as often as I can to update your listeners. We also have the NAACP, both presidents in Chicago, the West Side chapter and the South Side chapter are supporting us. We have a meeting with them next week, and we're trying to get national support from the NAACP because, as Ms. Morrow said, this is a national issue. Like I said earlier, I got a call from Dr. Brown from Tucson, Arizona. The same thing is happening to her. About 3 months ago, I got a call from a brother from New York. He said the same thing is happening to him. Every time I go on a television show or a radio show, an educator calls in and says the same thing happened to them. You know, I decided to fight, and because I'm fighting, we have other Black educators that are joining the fight. And I know we're running out of time, so I want to say this. When we saw the brother get attacked in I believe it was Montgomery, Alabama, and he was standing on the dock, and the white guy attacked him and tried to fight him, and he was only doing his job. Black people around the country and around the world, when the Black people joined together and worked together and fought back, Black people celebrated them. You saw people putting folding chairs on their Twitter as their Twitter handle and whatnot, or their Facebook profile picture, or whatever the case may be. But we celebrated the fact that Black people stood together and fought in the face of disrespect and racism. And so that fight was important, but the fight that we're engaged in is a much more important fight because we're fighting for the minds of Black children. And you have Black educators that are on the dock of Black educating. We're throwing the hat up in the air, and we would like our people to join the fight. And you can join the fight by going on justiceforabdulmuhammad.com. You can register, sign the petition, and send an email on that site to Mayor Brandon Johnson. If you decide to support, you can support by donating to the GoFundMe. All of that is on the website, justiceforabdulmuhammad.com. So we want you to join this fight for the minds of our children.
As we wrap up to this part of the conversation, first and foremost, we can't thank you enough. And I'm so happy to be a part of this effort to get the word out and to talk about these issues that many educators like Corinna, Kimberly Morrow, many folks know exist, but we are confined and restricted from actually talking about. So this gives light to something. Absolutely. But the big question that I want to ask you, and I know it was posed to you by many people, do you want to go back into the system? Do you want to go into keep this fight on? Because some folks might be listening and say, well, Brother Abdul, you're a Muslim. You understand, and the great Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan often talks about we must divide, create our own. Do you want to go back into the school system?
So to answer that question, absolutely, because, and I had this conversation with the minister as well as with others, but definitely with the minister. Brother, the thing that we have to understand is the public school system is where our children are. If your children were in a burning house, right, and that's what the public school system is, it's a burning house. And if your children were trapped in a burning house and you were standing outside and somebody asked you, do you want to go in there and save your children? Like it's a foregone conclusion. Those are my babies. I'm going in the house. No matter what in the house, I'm going in the house. And we've seen parents out of the love for their children go and challenge the flames to save their children. So if you ask me, do I want to go back? The answer is yes, because I love Black children and they're trapped in a system that does not love them and would not give them the education that they deserve and the treatment that they deserve without Black educators who love them and care about them and want to give them the best of what they can get in the public school system. So we have to go after our children wherever they are. And this is not a slight against white children, because you have white children and Latino children who are being impacted negatively by the same system. We have to change the system where the system benefits all of us, or as Black people, we have to make the decision to remove our children from this system if we can't change it and make it to benefit everybody that's in the system. So if you ask me, do I want to go back to continue to save the lives of Black children? Although I've suffered in this system, the answer is 100% yes, because I love my people.
There it is, Brother Abdul Muhammad, principal educator in the Chicago public school system. We thank you, dear brother, for your time. We thank you for sharing your story. Again, folks, go to the website, Justice for Abdul Muhammad. You can be a part of the solution here, as you can help, galvanize and show your support, not only for Brother Abdul, but for other educators, Black educators and administrators who have been ousted. But this is the site to just galvanize the support. So you can take action, as the site says. You can join the site. Also, send a letter directly to Mayor Brandon Johnson, the new mayor of the city of Chicago, and let your voice be heard. Brother Abdul, we're going to do our part, as I mentioned, but more importantly, we'll bring you back on. You know, you got some important conversations and meetings next week, so God willing, we'll bring you back on after that point to get the latest from you. But thank you, dear brother. We truly appreciate it.
Thank your listeners and your co-hosts and guests. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about how Black mothers are calling for educational reform You had a number of Black women who rallied in Washington, D.C. yesterday to call about education reform, to talk about the issues of bullying, active shooters, and excuse me, curriculum development, and so much more. Folks, there's a lot of movement that's happening. Folks are looking to change the dynamic of power in the educational system. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let me bring my sisters back. Sister Corinne and Denise, college admissions advisor, my sister Kimberly Morrow. Let me just tell y'all something.
Ooh. That was a lot.
Hey, Corinna and Kim, we got some work to do. We got some real work to do, sisters. Y'all, hey, look, Y'all in these spaces. I'm not in these spaces. Of course, I know a lot of teachers, coming from Baltimore and then transitioning to Los Angeles, but we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. And I just feel like that particular conversation, it opens up like a wound that hasn't been fully healed yet. A wound, and I think, and Corinne, I'm watching your chat, I'm watching your comments, and Kimberly, I'm seeing, having a conversation. I know there's so much more that both of you could share, but for legal purposes and in other reasons, you can't share. So that's why I'm saying this is like a wound. Nobody's put a Band-Aid over the wound. It's just out there in the open, just in the air, and it has to heal on its own. But somebody needs to care for this wound. And listening to Brother Abdul, and I love how he kept saying, this is for Black children. And sometimes we get caught up in the politics, as you mentioned, Kimberly, we get caught up in the politics of our job and have to make sure that we do keep in mind that this is bigger than our job. Yeah. If you don't have Black men and Black women in the classroom, Black men and Black women on the staff, Black men and Black women as administrators and principals, all types of madness can happen. Kimberly, I'm giving you an opportunity. Please do talk to me.
Oh man, and I love his commitment to wanting to stay to work with our Black students. I think had that happened at a school where it was predominantly Black.
Looks like we got just some technical issues with you, Sister Kimberly. We'll get back to you. We'll have you fix that. But let's talk to you, Corinna. What's your take on it?
Oh, it was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely not surprising. I can say that what I went through significantly that I briefly touched on, that did happen when I was in New York City. So it's happening some of everywhere. And especially the setting that I was in, you have predominantly Black children, and all of their teachers, particularly in this instance, are white. And they're excited, that year that a handful of folks who look like them are now going to be teaching them. They're going to be around them. So, they're excited. And then that kind of just almost stirs up some jealousy, which leads to controversy, which is then like, yeah, you got to get the hell out. And man, like just listening to Mr. Muhammad's story, when you called on me to talk about it, Farajii, I had to suppress so much because I tell you, if I didn't respond today, it would have been one long bleep. Like that's how I felt.
I understand.
Like, okay,
I understand.
So, but I'm glad that he's hanging in there because especially like, we already have a shortage of Black educators and particularly Black men. Like our Black boys don't have those strong Black seasoned men, in their classrooms. And we can't just throw in the towel, and it speaks to his resilience, our resilience as a people. I'm really glad to hear that he does have the parent support. I hope, that when we follow up with Mr. Muhammad, we'll hear like more detail as to what that parent support actually looks like. Yeah. I think we need to start rallying, just like we see these moms for liberties and things like that, when it comes to our children, and have more of a presence there and supporting the teachers and the administrators in the school community. We should have a say, right? The same way they want to ban books. Well, we got to say about this. You can't just get rid of our principle and think we're just going to get over it and move on. Like we're going to fight back.
Absolutely.
Focus we need to definitely have, especially with education being under attack the way it is right now, especially when it comes to our children. So
absolutely. That's why I wanted to just highlight the work that some of these sisters are doing. Speaking of standing up, sisters that have gathered together in Washington, D.C. This is the group called the Black Mothers Forum. And folks, the Black Mothers Forum, if you have not heard of it, this is a fairly new group of women who are demanding change in schools. They're seeking more school choice, Corinna. and solutions to school shootings and bullying. Now, they were on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. I think it was just like earlier this week, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see this was happening yesterday, actually. Here's a picture of our beloved sisters. This is the Black Mothers Forum. They rallied. This was their first organization's kickoff event of the year, unveiling a call to action for parents to advocate and educate others on making crucial decisions in their children's education. The rally, which took place, of course, during the week of National School Choice Week, and I'm sure you're familiar with that, is one of more than 100 celebrations in DC and nationwide. So big shout out to these sisters. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more details about the work that Black Mothers Forum is doing. Let's put up this first quote, please, Lise. Thank you. As we talk about this, I'm looking at the second paragraph down from the rally's podium. The speakers and organizers called for solutions, advocating for schools safe from shootings and bullying, the dismantling of the school to prison pipeline, which we all are familiar with and know too much about, and more options for family when it comes to school choice. Now, according to the founder of Black Mothers Forum, she told the Griot, our whole purpose is to bring mothers together from across the nation, from all walks of life, to address our concerns about what's going on in our schools. Man, oh man, look, can we give a horn to these sisters? And this, I am so excited about this. There we go. I'm so excited that these sisters have decided. A lot of times, Corinna, and this is something that I've learned in my years of activism work. A lot of times people want to look at the numbers, the physical presence, right? Mm-hmm. Oh man, they got a new group. Oh, they did a rally. How many people showed up at the rally? And that's oftentimes serves as a metric of whether something is going to be successful or not. And I always try to tell people that the number of people that show up at the site to do a rally or a protest or be a part of a march has nothing to do with the number of people whose sentiment are in the same place as the organizers, right? And so I don't want us to get caught up on, oh, okay, this must not be an important issue because thousands didn't show up. I don't care if 10 people showed up, Corinna. Mm-hmm. It still shows some sense of, as Brother Abdul talked about and as you and Kimberly talked about, there's a sign of solidarity. Right. There's a sign of unity. And more importantly, that we're not going to just sit by and watch idly while things are happening in our school system. So big shout out to the Black Mothers Forum. What's your take on the work that they're doing and for them to call for things like school choice and dealing with school shootings and bullying? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love it, right? You know, I literally just mentioned, you know, something like this, how we need to have our own groups. And I hope we see, I'd like to know if they have like maybe more chapters around different states and cities and things like that. But now that we are magnifying their organization, you know, I hope it implores parents who are right here in our audience to get involved. And I think to your point too, it doesn't matter how big or small the crowd is on that particular form, right, of a rally, what's actually happening behind the scenes, right? Behind closed doors and meetings and showing up at school board meetings and state legislatures trying to push for the things that we need, especially speaking to school bullying and the gun violence, which we know is so rampant. So I'm very happy to see that, particularly, you know, and Black women, you know,
y'all been on the front lines. Y'all been on the front lines of this school battle for many, many years. So that's why the voice of like a Brother Abdul and other Black men is so essential and is so needed, because women have been talking about education for years, for decades in this country, right? Y'all the ones that go to the school, to the PTA meetings. I know my mother was the one who showed up at the PTA meetings, parent-teacher conferences, right? Y'all the ones that volunteer your times in the school. And brothers, we got to do more because there are only about 2% of Black men. 2% of Black men are actually teachers.
You know, where the I hope and I would like to see, you know, the Black men to support these Black moms who are pushing forward these things for our children, right? Because it takes a village to raise a child. right? Some of everyone has to get involved for that child to be a productive citizen and to have a successful life. So it's going to take some of all of us to push the effort forward. But yeah, I love seeing this Black mothers rallying together in DC to demand school reform. This has to be an ongoing thing. I really would like to learn more about the other things that they're kind of implementing, if they're going to connect the dots with some of the things that are happening again right now with education, right? And the banning of books and the changing of curriculum. So I would imagine they're involved in a lot of work, productive work, meaningful work, trying to make sure that our children have, a safe environment to go to school, and are they actually learning? And I hope they also support the Black administrators who are in the schools too, who have a big influence on their children, right? A big impact in their lives. But unfortunately, like we saw with our brother, Mr. Muhammad, Black educators are just being attacked. And again, that is just happening everywhere. So, I'm glad to see that we also have one of our own organizations, right? Black mothers who are in the fight specifically, who we can kind of tie all this together and support each other. And, I hope we have some sort of, I really do.
Let me direct everybody, and Corinna, I think this website would help you to get more information. Folks, y'all can check out, at least let's pull up the website, please. blackmothersforums.com, blackmothersforums.com. This is the official website for the Black Mothers Forum. And they, as you can see on their site there, folks, and we can remove the lower third because I just want to let folks kind of see what the site is all about. But they have their missions, beliefs, and purpose. They talk about some of the things, and when you scroll down on the website, they have the BMF, the BMF micro schools making things right. When you go down further down, they have a minority economic development report and business expo. I mean, these sisters are doing some great things.
Yes,
they are doing some great things, and we're going to try to do our best to make sure that we bring them on. But this is the work that is being done. And, there's a space, Corinna. This is the one thing that I hope people are empowered and inspired by when we have these conversations, and just this platform. I don't want anyone to walk away from this show thinking that they don't have any power just because they're an individual. That's not important. I want each one of you, crew members, I want each one of you to feel empowered to say, you know what? There is something I can do from the place that I am for the times that we're living in. You could do something. It don't need to be, you only don't need to be organizing and gathering and galvanizing thousands of people. But each one of us has the power within, and we have the resources without to do something.
And I would say,
yeah, go ahead.
If I may, I just want to add, I would say, especially with this particular conversation that we are highlighting right now, one thing that all of us could do who are in this audience, if you have, children of your own, maybe you don't have children of your own, you just love children, you're in your community, we see what's happening with education right now. Get involved, start going to those meetings. I can tell you right here in my community, there are going to be some meetings coming up talking about ongoing changes. I'm definitely going to pop in and go. Why? I'm not directly working in the schools, but I still do touch and work with kids and families. And I just love kids. And, if we don't start to get involved, right, then we're just going to see a takeover, which we kind of see happening now. So I think the more we are present and in those spaces, we're going to start to, cultivate a narrative that, hey, like, we are paying attention. We are going to be involved and watching your every move. And we're going to push back on things that we feel are not appropriate or that are just wrong and unjust. And I think, that's a simple ask. Even if you can't physically make it to the space, you could tune in. They say, hey, we're live streaming the school board meeting, right? You can click into that.
That's a great point.
So it's just about, getting involved and making sure that you're aware of what's happening, because especially right now, our teachers, our students need the support of the community in its entirety. You don't necessarily have to have a child of your own in school to be supportive.
That is absolutely correct. That is a great way to end the show and to end the week. Corinna, I thank you so much, y'all. Make sure y'all follow my sister Corinna Denise on all social media platforms. She's always doing something. She's putting out some great things. The last couple of days, She's been putting out stuff about redistricting, stuff that is happening in her home state of Florida.
I'm trying to share the information, you know.
Hey, that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, you know, social media, you know, you gotta throw in some consciousness with all the madness and foolishness that people be sharing, right? So, you know, I personally appreciate you.
Woo, foolishness. I hope we got another time where we could just share some foolishness.
Share some foolishness. So I truly appreciate it.
Highlight, yeah, what's happening.
Just a highlight, but you're doing a fantastic work. Big shout out to my sister Kimberly Morrow, always been who is doing the work. And of course, you heard her story, folks. She has been through the ringer, but that has not diminished her passion and her fight for our children and for the future of education for Black children, brown children, and just for the future of education in this country for Black educators. So big shout out to Sister Kimberly. We'll make sure we bring her back in on Friday of next week as well. And big shout out to Brother Abdul. Once again, we thank him. Go to his website at Justice for Abdul Muhammad. Sign up for that. I know we're asking you to take action, but we can't just sit around and talk about these things anymore. We have to say to ourselves, enough is enough, and let me do something. But trust and believe, crew members, never forget that you can be a part of the solution. Regardless of where you are, what your station of life is, you can do something to change the quality of life of yourself and your family and your community and your people if you just take that first step to say, you know what, I'm going to tune into a meeting. I'm going to be a part of this event. I'm going to volunteer my time. It's so much work to do. Those of us who you see it on the public eye, we could do some of it, but it takes all of us to make the change that we want to see.
Like Whitney said, the children are our future, so we got to make sure things are going well for them. Because when we get ready to retire, Farajii, you know, I want to sit back and not have to worry who the hands of the world are in. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Kids are good.
There it is, right there. There it is. My sister Corinna Denise, my sister Kimberly Morrow. Thank y'all so much for the work, and of course, thank you for being so good for the culture. God willing, we'll talk next week.
Peace. Have a good weekend.
Peace. All right, y'all. That's going to do it for us. Thank y'all, crew. Thank you. Phenomenal conversation. Didn't get too many insights from you because I wanted to hope that we could just listen to Brother Abdul, but I love the internal chat. And so many of you have been empowered. My hope is that you've been empowered from this. Again, folks, we thank you so much. We still got a lot of work to do. We'll bring our brother Abdul back to the conversation and so much more, and make sure that this discussion doesn't fall to the wayside. All right, stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. is Roland Martin Unfiltered RMU. Make sure you do your due diligence. Support us here at Black Star Network. Just go to our website today at Black Star Network. Download the app. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. Also, follow yours truly, me, Farajii Muhammad. I would love to connect with y'all at The Real Farajii on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Farajii, and I'm also on Facebook at Farajii Muhammad. And I would love to make your acquaintance and to support the work that y'all are doing, and continue to send me messages. Some of you like, well, I want to send them this, I want to send them that, because I do look at them and I do appreciate y'all keeping me up to date. I don't know everything that's going on, but y'all keep feeding me. So I hope to use that to feed you as we have these shows. So thank you y'all for y'all support. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Folks, stay tuned for Roland Martin Unfiltered, and have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Peace.